Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I now have getting my new glasses in the works. I need my glasses. The screenings, the XRP Unleashed screenings are coming up. I can't go in there and watch that without my prescription glasses. It just won't work. A dirty little secret. One of the things that my friends often make me mad about is I am the guy, I have prescription sunglasses too, and I'm the guy that will wear my prescription sunglasses if I don't have my regular glasses and it gets dark and we're in a place where we're watching TV at somebody's outdoor place or whatever, and I'm not above wearing my prescription sunglasses once it gets dark if I don't have my regular if I forgot my regular prescription glasses, because I can see better even though they're sunglasses at night with those prescriptions than I could if I didn't have any glasses on at all. Check it out. New version of Codius in the works. RLUSD any day now. Tether under investigation. XRP Unleashed. Trailer 500,000 views exposing ETHgate. Over 500,000. By the way, the link to that's in the top of the description if you want to go and buy tickets to the screening. It's like $39. But all these reasons, these are all reasons to be very bullish on what Ripple's doing, which is why luckily one of my sponsors is linked to linqto.com. They have Ripple private equity on the platform right now. You can also download the Link2 app. Check this out. Look at this from eGrag Crypto, because there's a scenario here I'm going to show you where you could have, I actually calculated it, $132.90 XRP. Look at this. He's got, worst case scenario, he's got 443 to 886 for XRP. And I think he's talking, if Bitcoin hits 100,000, solid 555% pump for XRP, would mirror the last cycle's high. If we don't see this gain, 555%, it could signal another custodial black swan event impacting XRP specifically. But even 555% move could mean big dollars against the big dollar gains for XRP holders. Let's break it down. So he's saying Bitcoin 100K, 443 XRP, 130K, 576 XRP, 150K, 664 XRP, 170, $707.53, 200K Bitcoin, $8.86. Well, this guy right here is calling for a $3 million Bitcoin.
We have a model that assumes that by 2050, this is very long term, that Bitcoin becomes a reserve asset that's used in global trade and held by global central banks at a very modest 2% weight. And in that model, we arrive at a $3 million price target for Bitcoin. Now, that sounds, extreme, but that's a 16% compound annual growth rate for a couple decades. That's not really that extreme. So into the millions over the medium term is high conviction.
Folks, so when you hear that, he's calling for a $3 million Bitcoin. Well, do a $200,000 Bitcoin into $3 million, do the math, and what that comes out to is a $132.90 XRP using that same thought pattern. Mac Attack says you want a present, keep an eye on XRP in the coming hours. Something in the charts, I guess. This is an interesting clips about the Brics dollar threat here from Peter St. Onge.
If you happen to own US dollars, breathe a sigh of relief. China and Russia are not coming for you, at least not yet. Last week, the Brics group of anti-dollar countries held their annual meeting, of course, in Russia, which is lonely and needs friends. Despite frenzied hype about Brics finally killing the US dollar, the best they could come up with was a silly little currency basket that will fail. So if you're just tuning in, Brics is a group of anti-dollar countries led by China and Russia, along with oil producers like Saudi Arabia, Dubai, and Iran. and plus some big countries like India and Egypt that take it to roughly half the population of Earth. Now, beyond its size, BRICS is interesting because it's increasingly uniting all of the countries that actually make stuff. So manufacturing in China, natural resources in Russia, Saudi, Dubai. Given America and Europe are deindustrializing and banning fossil fuels to entertain environmental activists, this could potentially mortgage our future to countries that don't like us. Still, the immediate fear had been BRICS' long-stated goal to dethrone the US dollar in order to end America's imperialist hegemony. Concretely, the key parts are a BRICS payment system that would replace the Western-dominated SWIFT system for bank transfers, more ambitiously, a BRICS currency to replace the US dollar. Now that takes us to this year's meeting where it looks like BRICS is making grinding progress on the SWIFT payments, which would insulate them from Western sanctions. But on the big one, currency, they seriously dropped the ball. So Russia had been floating for years now a gold-backed BRICS. That would actually challenge the dollar since gold holds its value unlike paper. Alas, they whiffed with a boring old currency basket that, if they are dumb enough to do it, will fail. So a BRICS currency basket means you throw all of their crappy currencies into a basket, the ruble, the yuan, the rupee, and you take the average. This is a terrible idea. Since most BRICS countries are monetary basket cases, Brazil has a long relationship with hyperinflation, Russia and Iran are close. A basket of basket cases does not stand a snowball's chance of replacing the dollar, at least outside trade between BRICS countries, say between China and Russia. But that inter-BRICS trade amounts to a tiny fraction of global trade, about 1.5%, while the BRICS currency share of international reserves, that's money that governments hold, it's another big source of currency demand, and there BRICS is not much better at maybe 5%. So with those numbers, a basket of BRICS will barely make a dent in the dollar. So what's next? Brought to you by Unchained.com.
Okay, check it out. So here's another one. This guy says, reminded me when I said that he was once told XRP was designed to prevent World War III. Was told that. True story.
But I want to ask you about sort of another important multilateral institution that we've referenced here today, the BIS and the FSB. What is your view on how effective those institutions are and how fit for purpose those two institutions are in sort of meeting these modern global challenges?
So I think both the BIS and the FSB have done a really good job when a problem has been identified, that the G20 says this is the problem and we want you to fix it. And then they have the mandate to go forward and fix it, and they have a lot of support. So the examples I used before, the transition of LIBOR to secured overnight funding rate and other, repo rates in other countries, the central clearing of OTC derivatives. But it's harder when it's a perspective issue, because, as I said earlier, the BIS and the FSB can only do things by consensus. They don't have quite the same governance model as the IMF and the World Bank, and so it's harder to get things done in a perspective. It's sort of like it's the army of volunteers. It's the army of the willing. A good example of this is what's happening in terms of cross-border payments. The BIS is basically saying, who has an instant payment system that would like to knit your instant payment system together with other countries' instant payment? And the countries that put their hands up, the BIS says, let's go, and they take it forward. And they're hoping that demonstration project, Project Nexus, which is India, Thailand, Singapore, a couple other countries, Malaysia, they're hoping that if they can do that successfully, then that will encourage other people to come on board because they'll see the benefits of that action. But it's hard to do under the existing governance framework because it's all about consensus, and that's harder to achieve in peacetime than in wartime.
Okay, let's see what else we have here. This is, I'll play the first part of this. This is they're giving the rationale for why Bitcoin, the U.S. should have Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset.
Why have two presidential candidates in the U.S. put forth the concept that the U.S. should have a strategic reserve of Bitcoin? But the same notion that the U.S. has a strategic reserve of gold. Because if Bitcoin grows in global commerce, which it will, as an international settlement asset, then it's incumbent on the US to ensure that they have a large amount of Bitcoin such that they can potentially either protect themselves in the event there's a huge movement off the dollar so they can still trade, but also so they can project power using Bitcoin. as a way to control trade. Now, how do you control trade in Bitcoin? Because nobody controls it. There's nobody printing it. The only way Bitcoin is traded, however, is through mining. In the world of Bitcoin mining, there's a concept called global hash rate. Global hash rate is the sum of all the compute that's applied to the processing of Bitcoin transactions. I'll stop using the word mining. And so miners all compete. Imagine it's a train, and there are only 144 seats on that train. And you have to process transactions because you as a country need to settle a large deficit payment, or you have to settle international trade. What happens if you can't get a seat on that train and a day passes, and you can't get a seat on the next day's train, and you can't get a seat on the next day's train? You're effectively locked out of the market even though you have the currency. And so owning control of block space becomes a strategic necessity. Again, one block every 10 minutes. Each block has limited capacity. There are only so many transactions that can fit in a block. If you don't get your transaction into that block, it has to go to the next and to the next. And if no Bitcoin miner selects your transaction because your country is on a list that that Bitcoin miner will not support, you will not get your transactions processed. The US asked at one point, 3.5 years ago, Bitcoin miners to support OFAC and to not process transactions that were marked as in violation of OFAC laws by not processing transactions from OFAC wallets. And the pure nature of the fact is it's very hard to not process a transaction that's on an OFAC wallet because Bitcoin can be moved around. But if countries control mining capacity, then they can choose not to process transactions tied to US wallets.
In other words, they can control Bitcoin. That's the whole point. Any strategic reserve asset should include a basket of strategic assets, not just Bitcoin. It should be the digital. I mean, Brad Garlinghouse has said before that there would probably be scores of digital assets, which would be about 20, or a score of digital assets. So, and that's what kind of what I've always thought. There will be a handful, 15 or 20, that are allowed to exist. And those should be strategic assets of all countries. Just in Emory University, that's in my neck of the woods, that's up in Atlanta. Emory University is the first endowment to report a Bitcoin ETF position with $15.8 million worth of Bitcoin. Now, in DAIXRP.com, we're going to talk about a couple of things. There are people running scared. They're starting to see the writing on the wall on this election. And there's somebody else that's caught on tape, speaking of elections. This is interesting stuff. It's kind of what we've always thought, but we can't talk about it out here. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family. Away we go.